Rob Dauster, thefield68.com with us on 365 Sports. The Final Four is set. DJ Burns, my goodness, what a great story. I've read about where he's been, Tennessee, Winthrop, but what he's done and what NC State has done just reminds me a little bit about Jimmy V in '83.
Yeah, it does have some of those vibes, right? Like it's some underdogs, some second chance guys. The thing I love about DJ Burns is that he really has embraced this idea of who he is and his size, the skill level that he has, his ability and touch around the rim, and the fact that he's very comfortable in his own body, right? He's very comfortable with who he is. Like if you make fun of him for, let's just say what it is, being overweight, being out of shape, that's what drives him. That's what motivates him. And it's so much fun to watch. And he's got an electric personality. And, you know, it's one of those things where I think a lot of people wanted Duke to be there, the executives, the people that are in charge of trying to get the most eyeballs on this event as possible, the people that are making money selling ads against the viewing numbers we're going to get here, right? A lot of them wanted Duke to be in this Final Four because it's Duke. I think having a character like DJ Burns is the kind of thing that makes college basketball special, right? There's no other sport in America where you can go from being a team that lost your last 4, that lost 6 of your last 7, that lost 10 of your last 14 games in the regular season, to winning 9 in a row and having a guy that went from this kind of like this no name on the team that is the third biggest story in their own state to being one of the biggest stories and one of the great characters in college basketball. It's beautiful. It's why this sport is the best sport, and it's why the NCAA tournament is the best way to determine a champion and the worst way to figure out who the best team in college basketball is. It's been a lot of fun to watch.
His smile, his personality is contagious, but man, if you watch him, and I was texting a coach last night, he's like, his feet are great, his soft touch for a big man, it's just like you don't expect that from him. And I didn't watch him at all until they get to the tournament. Saw the end of that game with Virginia on a highlight thing back during the ACC tournament. It's just so much fun. So you have him, who's the opposite of what you would think is a big man inside, and then you have Zach Edey, who's this 7'4", played like just a madman himself with 40 points and more. How much Matt Painter, what he's done at Purdue, how much of a great story is that too?
Yeah, you know, I'm really, really happy for those guys because it's been a long time coming for Purdue. They've had some really, really good teams. They've had some unfortunate endings. One of them was obviously the Robbie Hummel team where Hummel tore his ACL and saw that season go up in flames. It was the last 3 years where they lost to double-digit seeds. It was last year's team that was so dominant throughout the regular season. They got knocked out in the first round of the tournament. Being able to bring everybody back. No one hits the transfer portal. Zach Edey doesn't go pro. And they decided to run it back when there was every reason for them to bail on it. I think it says a lot about the culture there. I think it says a lot about the coaching staff. I think it says a lot about the heart and the intensity and the intelligence of the guys on that Purdue roster. And, you know, I want nothing but the best for them. It's a fantastic storyline. And I know that like Zach Edey has kind of become this villain and it's kind of hard for some people to root for him because of the way that he plays, but you're not going to find a better kid, a more humble kid, or a better story getting to the Final Four than Zach. You got to remember, this kid didn't start playing basketball until he was like 14 years old, right? He was a first baseman, a pitcher, and a goalie in hockey until they were like, yeah, you know what? You're 7'4". Maybe you should try this sport where 7'4" guys are rewarded. And he developed himself into being the best player in college basketball, the most dominant big man that we've seen in college basketball in a generation. He's going to be the back-to-back National Player of the Year, and now he has a Final Four on his resume. It's been great to see him grow and develop and turn into this kid. And, you know, I want nothing but the best for him, man. Him and Painter, that Purdue program, once people start to get to know them, and now that they have the spotlight on them from being in the Final Four, I think people are going to realize just how outstanding that group is.
Rob, there's the UConn dominance, and we cover Baylor, we cover the Big 12. We've seen teams that have run through the tournament. Have you ever seen anything like what they've done so far?
No, man. It really is incredible what they've been able to build. I'm kind of getting shades of the 1990 UNLV team that ran through the tournament and Looked like nobody was going to catch him. I'm getting some 1999 Duke vibes from this group. And the thing that I'm worried about is that Purdue is lurking, right? Like, this is, to me, and I know that they got to play Alabama, and I know they got to play NC State, and I like Nate Oates, I like Kevin Keats, I like those guys. I want them to I don't want to just completely write off their appearance in the Final Four, but it's one of those where it's like, yeah, I'm glad you guys made the trip, but everybody wants the two juggernauts to face off. Everybody wants the team trying to go back-to-back to take on the team that is trying to go from losing to a 16 to winning a national title. They're the two best teams in college basketball. They've been the two best teams in college basketball all season long, and we want that matchup. I don't know anybody that doesn't want to see that happen. That's what we want. That's the way to kind of have this sport cut through, right? Is greatness taking on greatness. You have the greatest player that we've seen in the generation against the most dominant team that we've seen in the generation. I don't know who would not sign up for that matchup in the national title game.
I look at Alabama, and I've watched them all year long. They've had some ups and downs, but I've always thought of them as they're fearless, and they don't worry about what the score is, the way they play, especially explosive on offense. How much does that give them a puncher's chance on Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, look, if you're going to beat UConn, you have to have an outlier performance from beyond the arc. Like, there's a lot of things that you got to do to be able to beat this team. You got to be able to blow up what they want to run offensively, right? And I don't know if Alabama can do that. You got to be able to get the big fella in foul trouble. I don't know if they're going to be able to do that. You have to be able to find a way to make Tristan Newton and Cam Spencer uncomfortable offensively. And I don't know if Alabama is going to be able to do that. But the other thing that you can do is you can have an outlier three-point shooting game. You can go out there and you can make a whole bunch of threes. And look, that is the great equalizer. It kind of feels like one of those situations where we're talking about a mid-major team going up against a high-major team in the first round of the tournament, where it's like, well, there's a lot of things that they have to do to be able to get this one right. But if they have one of those nights where they make 19 three-pointers, then they're going to have a chance. Here's the thing about Alabama. They're probably going to get up 53s in this game. Like, that is what they do. They spread the floor, they space the floor, they try to drive, they kick it out, and they hit open threes. And when you have Donovan Clingan at the rim, right, I fully expect Nate Oates to go with one of these lineups where he's playing like a Grant Nelson or he's playing the Stevenson kid, and they are trying to go 5 out, make Donovan Clingan come away from the paint and find ways to get up threes. I think they're going to shoot like 50 of them. And if they have one of those nights where they go like 24 for 52 from 3, they're going to have a chance to be able to beat UConn. Now, does that happen? I don't know. UConn's a very good three-point defensive team. They have a kid named Steph Castle who's going to be all over Mark Sears and is going to give Mark Sears, who's been an All-American caliber point guard, going to give him nightmares. But there's still the chance that this team can catch absolute fire. We saw it in the second half against Clemson. And if you have a night like that, Alabama can literally beat anybody in college basketball. So that's going to be the key. Get those threes up, let them fly, and make sure they go in. Of
the teams, Rob, that did not win over the weekend, who should be the most disappointed? Who is the one that lost their opportunity that you never know when you're going to get it anytime soon?
You know, I feel for Tennessee because they are a Final Four team that ran into a national championship team in the Elite Eight. And I feel for Illinois. They're a Final Four team that ran into a national championship team in the Elite Eight. It sucks when the bracket shakes out that way. If Illinois was playing Duke or NC State or Clemson or Alabama, I have a very strong suspicion that Illinois would be sitting here in the national championship game or in the Final Four right now. Same thing with Tennessee. You know, they just kind of, the top 4 teams left in the tournament played each other in the Elite Eight. It is what it is. But the guy that I think is going to head into this week as they get ready for the Final Four, but the most like, man, I can't believe we couldn't get that done, is going to be John Shire. Like, this is his second season at Duke. He's trying to prove himself as the worthy successor to Coach K, and he had an opportunity against a rival where they were 7.5-point favorites to get himself to the Final Four in his second year as head coach. And they blew an 8-point lead in the second half, largely because their guards weren't good enough or tough enough or strong enough with the ball or mentally sound enough to be able to run the stuff they need to run. And, John Shire is a great guy, but this is one I think is going to – that's one that's going to stick with him for a while. If he ends up being good enough to be labeled as like the best to never make it to the Final Four, this is going to be the story that people point to when it happens.
Scott Drew's coaching tree, which has been blooming all around the country, two inside of his own conference in the Big 12 with Tang and also McCaslin. We know about Paul Mills and others, Matt Driscoll, and now an incredible assistant coach. Gonzaga and Baylor blooded him, and John Jacobs at Florida Atlantic. Your thoughts about John?
Really, really smart, very well regarded in the industry. When he got that FAU job, the one thing I heard was, "Ooh, that's a really, really good hire from FAU," which tells you everything you need to know about a lot of the guys, the way that the coaching industry views him. Florida Atlantic is not an easy job. They're in the American now. They had some of the worst facilities in Conference USA. So it's not going to be easy. I do think that living in Boca Raton is going to be nicer than living in Waco. I was down there for 4 days earlier in December, and let's just say that he is not going to be complaining about the scenery down there. You know, you're living literally right there on the beach. There's a lot worse places to have a job and to kind of work out your professional life. So I think he'll do well. The first thing he's going to do is go and try to find a way to be able to keep Janelle Davis, Elijah Martin, and Vlad Golden in Boca Raton for another season. So we'll see what ends up happening there. But I think Jacobs is a very, very, very good coach.
How about, this is it, Kelvin Sampson in Houston. We know how good they were, overcame injuries, and then the Jamal Shed injury in their game against Duke. I was like, golly, can you ever? And yet they still had a chance. Your thoughts about Kelvin being so close again?
Oh, man, it's part of what makes the NCAA tournament is you got to get lucky. And if you're not going to get lucky, whether it's with injuries, whether it's with three-point shooting, whether it's with who you kind of draw in your region, this is one of those things that can happen. And Jamal Shed didn't deserve that ending, right? The year that he had, the career that he's had, what Houston looked like they were going to be capable of doing this season. He didn't deserve it. He deserved a better ending than having to sit on the sideline wearing just a warm-up jacket while he iced up an ankle injury that's going to take 6 weeks to heal. It sucks. It's part of the game, but it's the one thing that I hate to see it.
Rob, thank you, man. I know it's a crazy time. Good luck. Have fun. The Final Four week, men's basketball. Rob Dauster, man, these guys are the best. We've talked about that. Thefield68.com, and I'm David Smoke, 365 Sports. And one quick note in